In the interests of balanced journalism, it was polite to accept the invitation to watch the racing from AC37, the hospitality centre that's on the beach by Barcelona. It's an impressive venue that looks right out over the racecourse, and its elevated position means you have a great view of the racing. And of course, lunch. So if you think you're coming down to watch the racing, find a way of getting here. It's definitely worth it. Meanwhile, today was the last day of the first round robin. Tomorrow is a reserve day, so there was a great deal of focus on today. In every cup cycle you get a few weird matches, and today's opening race was just that. The first signs that something was up came when Alinghi Red Bull Racing returned to the dock after a problem with the mainsail bolt rope. Unfortunately, they didn't make it back in time for the start and were disqualified. But that didn't stop the Swiss lining up against the Kiwis, and both boats did a lap of the course, presumably for practice. Having said that, even if Alinghi had made it in time and won, this still wouldn't have scored a point, as the defenders' races don't count. But it must also be frustrating for the defenders. Having ensured that they get some practice against the challengers by taking part in the round robin stage of the Louis Vuitton Cup, is not quite working out as they'd planned, at least not yet. Given Ainsley's fearless reputation in the pre-start, you might have expected this one to be a one-sided affair. But when you're dealing with the French, it's best not to take anything for granted. The pre-start looked quite straightforward, but as Ineos took the pin end and blasted out to the left, they were OCS by 40 centimetres. Forced to get behind the French by 75 metres, the game had changed before it had even got going. Around the top, the French had continued to lead, but Ineos was sailing deep and fast and eating into the French, and by the bottom gate the Brits had got through. But what we keep seeing is that the French boat is very quick upwind, and halfway up the beat they were back in the lead, before Ineos took it back. Then a close cross by Ineos, an attack which delivered a penalty to the Brits, which meant that by the second windward gate the French led by 20 seconds. A lead that reduced to 12 by the bottom. But today we had classic comeback Ainsley, because on the final upwind leg they were back in the lead, and from there they didn't give it back.
Yeah, good one for the fans, not so much for the boys on board. It was a bloody good race, and yeah, hats off to the French. They did a nice job making it hard for us. It's a strange one on the start. We're in a strong position, but just got the time on distance wrong there with the tactical lap, and then made a mistake with the penalty on the second upwind leg, I think it was. So yeah, great race.
I mean, we were close, but it's not enough for the moment. We need to push harder and try to come back and have a great race in the next round robin.
After their problems earlier today and the stress of a week that had delivered no points, Alinghi Red Bull Racing delivered a good, confident start, staying out of trouble and keeping their foot to the floor. By the top gate they were just 4 seconds behind Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, and while this had grown to 11 seconds by the bottom, the Swiss were still putting on a show. Unfortunately, despite this being a solid performance, the race still didn't put a point on the board. Instead, the Italians demonstrated how comfortable they are with their Silver Dream racer.
Yeah, it's a very good feeling. We did also a good job today, and yeah, feel super proud with the team and all the guys on the pedals, and yeah, I mean, everybody is doing a fantastic job. We have to keep pushing.
No, to be honest, happy with the performance of the boat. We finally took a start, so pretty happy with that to be able to fight against the other. And yeah, I think happy with the performance of the boat. We could play with the other, so yeah, very nice. And yeah, the power group did an amazing job, so always nice to be with them on board.
On the face of it, here was another race that didn't count for points, except that this was an important race for both the Kiwis and the Americans. Team New Zealand have had precious few opportunities to practice against others. Speed on its own is rarely enough in the Cup, and they know from experience that this is where the defender has a disadvantage. But whatever, this was a superb race. The Americans delivered an aggressive start at speed out to the left-hand side before smoking through to leeward halfway up the first beat. But up the third and final beat, the Kiwis took the left-hand side and muscled through. And as we've seen before with the Kiwis, once they're out in front, they stay there. But one thing I found particularly interesting in this race was the back-at-you move by the Americans on Team New Zealand. Just like the Kiwis did to Luna Rossa a few days ago when they climbed out from underneath them, so American Magic did a very similar thing that had the same effect. The only issue was that they weren't able to hold on to the lead. So as round robin 1 comes to a close, what have we learnt? We keep seeing it, but the French boat is very quick, especially upwind. So too is the American boat, which is very slippery full stop. The Brits are getting steadily quicker and more confident, and unlike in the last Cup, they can come back from problems too. The Swiss issues seem to continue, but today they delivered an impressive performance. And the Kiwis aren't getting the practice they'd like. But here's one impressive snippet. Apparently on the opening day when the French scored their win, they did so with just 2 of their 4 cyclors. Apparently the other 2 bikes are broken down. I wonder if anybody else has been practicing that. See you next time.